Welcome everyone to this episode of GLI Live. My name is Donna Cryer. I am the founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute. I have the privilege of being your host. For those of you who have been with us throughout our GLI Live series, which has been an essential part of our COVID-19 response, bringing essential information and connection to people, not only those with liver disease or those who are immunocompromised and transplant recipients, cancer patients, but everyone who would benefit from a little bit more expertise, a little bit more connection, and a virtual hug during these times. This may be the most important episode that we have done to date, and I can go without saying that we've had some really important, impactful episodes in the past, and we hope to have some in the future. But our topic today is on the urgency of drug development in NASH, which is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, the advanced form of a chronic progressive condition, which is better known as fatty liver disease. I have as my guests three incredible NASH patient warriors, people who have personal experience living with this condition and who have made that pivot into taking their personal experience and turning it into patient advocacy, turning that into helping others. I am so honored that GLI has been able to support them in that journey and in that work as part of our Advanced Advocacy Academy. Collectively, they reach tens of thousands of patients with fatty liver disease and NASH. And I'm happy to introduce them as Wayne Eskridge, CEO of the Fatty Liver Foundation, Anthony Villiotti, President of NASH Knowledge, and Terri Milton, who is a NASH community leader and support group moderator. Welcome to you all, and take a moment to say hello to our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Donna.
Thanks, Donna. Appreciate the invitation.
Our topic today is on the urgency of drug development in NASH. And we as patients and parts of this community have felt and communicated that urgency for some time. I know the Global Liver Institute started our NASH Council in 2017 and have been very active in this space, as have all of you. But the necessity of this episode today is due to an alarming recent action by the Food and Drug Administration and our lack of success to date, despite a formal request, to have a meeting scheduled with the FDA Hepatology Division staff. It's incredibly disappointing to me, who has been an FDA patient rep for over a decade now, and I'm used to having very direct and quick communications with FDA staff. I do hope that they move more quickly than they have. So the action that we're reacting to was the issuance of what's called, for the benefit of our audience, a complete response letter to Intercept Pharmaceuticals regarding their drug OCA, a medication that's already approved and used by PBC patients. Those are rare liver disease patients. And this action was done abruptly and unexpectedly, denying OCA's breakthrough therapy application and canceling the advisory committee that all of us patients and other stakeholders were looking forward to present information about NASH, the patient experience, and the potential impact of this medication. And so that has been denied us at this point. In full disclosure, all of us on this panel, individually or through our organizations, have received funding from Intercept and other companies in the field as we have been building this field collaboratively. We've also had access to a lot of data across many presentations that we've attended and participated in for multiple years in multiple countries. with multiple thought leaders on multiple platforms. So none of us are naive or come to this ill-informed. So with that all said, and quite a lot more precursor than I normally allow myself, Terri, tell us how your experience with NASH has been, and the impact that this decision has had on you and the patients that you speak with.
It's an interesting thing is in 1998, I was diagnosed with fatty liver, and my doctor at that time said, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And so I didn't worry about it. It was kind of swept under the rug, out of sight, out of mind. And next thing I know is in 2017 is during an elective surgery is they did find not only that fatty liver had progressed, but it had already progressed to NASH cirrhosis. And so when you think about the terms of progression and education and all the information that is so important to a patient, is had I had that information back in 1998, I don't think I would be sitting here on this panel today, actually. Or if I did, it would be in a different capacity. Mm-hmm. And so I know that with NASH and as a patient, is that we have been watching the progression of this medication as it comes mm-hmm. through, is from the beginnings of getting to talk to the research scientists and the doctors that are behind mm-hmm. it, and everything that was pertaining to getting this out to help others. And so there has been a sense of excitement, and I can tell you now, Donna, is that there is a sense of disappointment mm-hmm. Because just like that doctor said in 1998, basically the FDA has said, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And that is not good.
And we know it is a big deal. We know personally, many of us have experienced, I've been in end-stage liver disease and post-transplant. Tony and Wayne, you'll speak about this. We know that NASH is a big deal. It is a very serious progressive condition that can lead to ascites, varices, the need for transplant, cancer, and being told that the benefits of stopping progression are sort of uncertain, we're unclear, which is what we understand based on the public information. We'd love to talk directly to FDA, of course, but from what we have available, that's what we've been told, that the benefit of treating us is not that great, not that important, and that's not true. So Wayne, you are a NASH patient, a cirrhosis patient, as well as leader of a patient advocacy organization. What have you learned about NASH and the importance of fibrosis?
Thanks, Donna. One of the things that people don't understand, and I certainly didn't when I was going through my process, is just how dangerous this thing is. We have ways of measuring risk. We call it a hazard ratio. And doctors have studied this kind of thing endlessly. I mean, just to give you an example, if you have diabetes, your hazard ratio is 1.6, which means you're 60% more likely to die than somebody that doesn't have it. Smoking, we care tremendously about smoking. Smoking's a big deal with us. Well, smoking has a hazard ratio of 2.6. So this NASH that nobody seems to care about, if you have stage 3, that has a hazard ratio of 3.8. Why, that's almost 1.5 times as bad as smoking. But that's nothing. That's really nothing, because when you get to cirrhosis, you get to stage 4, it's almost 11. Now, when I learned that, I tell you what, that scared the heck out of me. And that means that, at the time that I was diagnosed, I was 11 times as likely to die as somebody who didn't have this. And the thing is that when doctors say, well, fatty liver, no big deal, come back, lose a little weight and come back and see me in a year. That just makes me crazy, because we're not looking for NASH. We're not looking for the progression of the disease. We don't test for it in a proper way. And so as a result, there's no therapy. We don't have any drugs. We don't have any treatments. And that's why this Intercept thing was so important to us, is this is the very first treatment that gave the opportunity to show, to actually reduce fibrosis by one stage. And, for those of us who have faced 11 times the risk of dying, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And it's not just your very learned opinion. And I just want to emphasize that, you're an engineer by training. You understand numbers and math. Tony, you're in finance, accounting. Terry, you're an educator. I'm an attorney. It's not as if we can't quite wrap our mind around this issue, the seriousness of it, the data, the impact, the benefit, and risk. But don't just take our word for it. Wayne, you've also done a really great quick survey. So the beginning of what might be a more formal patient preference study, but a very quick survey that has had some very clear results in terms of articulating and helping us all articulate what the patient perspective is on this issue. Can you go through that? Those 6 really great questions that you pulled and got results from for
yeah, I'd love to. What I did is I actually surveyed our membership in the foundation and reached out into our social media contacts and just posed questions to people that have these diseases and are dealing with them. And they're quick little questions. I'll just tell you what they are. First, asked if they were aware that the FDA was considering this OCA as a drug. And interestingly enough, only 51% of our patient population was aware of that. But then I asked them if they were aware there was no treatment for NASH. And quite dramatically, 94% of my respondents said they were aware that there's no treatment. So then the next question is, I pointed out that to be approved for therapy, the FDA required a 1-stage reduction in the fibrosis. And I asked if that would be of value. And 96% of the people said that would be of value. So the patients that understand, now these are people that are dealing with the disease, so they get it. I also ask if all a drug therapy did was stop progression, would that be of value? Because the FDA is requiring that it actually reduce the fibrosis in order to get approval. And so I was curious, what the boundary of that desire was. And 99% of the people who responded said that even stopping it would be of value to them. And I asked if they would support asking the FDA to reconsider, and 97% of them said yes. So, there's a significant desire on the part of the patient community for FDA to take this input from the patients more seriously, because we believe that they don't give the seriousness of NASH enough credence, or the opinion of the patients isn't factored in very well.
So, beyond canceling the AdCom, not having this meeting and meetings with us prior, really means that FDA made this decision without understanding our expectations for the benefit of what this first drug would be. We understand that, there's so many drugs in the pipeline and so many companies that ultimately we hope to have, multiple drugs to attack, the multiple mechanisms and perhaps have future effects. Of the disease as the field evolved. So our expectations for OCA were not part of this decision making, and our perceptions of risk or risk tolerance and importance of this were not part of that decision making. So the type of information that you've generated and cultivated from your community very quickly and easily. So it could have been done, in a time frame that would have, not interrupted anybody's workflow, since we're all here and very accessible, was not part of the decision making. Okay. And so Tony, I wanted to ask you, who've also lived with NASH and its most serious sequelae, how you feel about this, how you and your organization have reacted to this, and particularly that usurpation of the benefit risk calculation by FDA, sort of in a back room, in private, without patient input and engagement.
That's what I find most mystifying about their assessment. I mean, how can you evaluate the benefits versus the risks of a drug or anything without understanding the viewpoint of the people who are at risk? I mean, the fact that they've postponed or denied this application, the world hasn't stopped. People are continuing to develop NASH and continuing to have it progress to more serious stages. And the pandemic the same. I mean, while everybody's attention, deservedly so, is focused on the pandemic, this disease is not, NASH is not standing still. So
Right.
There's a great risk from not having a drug.
Mm-hmm.
And not that OCA would necessarily have been a silver bullet that would have solved everybody's problem, but it was a step along the way to developing a regimen that could be used to treat people with NAFLD and NASH.
Right.
So when I read that, it just astounded me. Somebody who, in the business world, I was always assessing rewards, versus benefits,
Mm-hmm.
risk versus rewards rather. I just can't understand how they would not take into consideration the viewpoint of the people who would stand to benefit from the drug.
I absolutely agree. And, having been involved in regulatory affairs for, two decades now, usually there's some signal or some, or you go to, someone in the know. And one of our board members of the Global Liver Institute is a former director of the GI division at FDA, and normally there would be someone who says, "Oh, well, let me explain it to you." I've never had a situation where everyone is shocked. Everyone is taken aback. Everyone is surprised. Every KOL that I've talked to, every clinician, every thought leader, every researcher, every other company, every other patient that I've talked to who has been involved with this. And as I said at the beginning, this community has been so collaborative and has worked so closely for so many years with FDA and with FNIH and other entities and things in the US and in Europe, so that things were globally aligned as well in terms of drug development. But there have been fantastic convenings and collaborations of the Liver Forum, for example, that many of us have participated in, I've rarely seen a field that has worked so closely together, pre-competitively and throughout across companies, across stakeholder groups. We have 70 different members in our NASH Council of medical societies, of patient advocacy organizations, nursing organizations, academic that have all come together to talk about this. And so usually, you might see this type of thing in a fragmented area where there hasn't been communication, or, but this is not that. This has been a very collaborative field where interactions with the regulators has been very constant and consistent. And I do want to give credit up to this point to Laura Dimmick, who has just been wonderful in communicating and being part and being considered a really valuable member of the NASH community. I think she had done a wonderful job at engagement. And so the fact that we were all caught surprised, all caught up short so abruptly, and that our request for a meeting from the patient community in particular, a meeting has, for going on, I don't know, weeks now. It's more than days, more than a week. Although there has been a response that, they're working on it and hope to get back to us next week, we feel the urgency of, as Tony, as you were mentioning, of patients trying to get in to be, screened right now, patients that we're trying to get in to be linked to care right now. We did not think that we would have to be fighting the battle on this regulatory front as well, because this breakthrough therapy approval for the very first treatment had been going along. We've had discussions with health systems about adoption and and payers and value assessors and all of those. I'll have to admit, this was not the tile in the Jenga tower that I thought was going to be pulled, because to this point FDA had been such a good partner with the community and had been communicating with us so regularly. And so we just want to know what happened, what changed. We want, and I think we deserve that communication in a timely fashion. I certainly don't want to, act or encourage action by other patients, patient groups, even members of Congress, until we've, heard from FDA and understand their thinking. And so, we've given them that opportunity. We've asked them to meet with us, and I really do hope that they avail themselves of that opportunity to explain their thinking and rationale to the community, and to hear from the community, to hear from patients directly what this means to us, not only regarding this one drug, but about the field as a whole that we care about. And also I'll just say this, about FDA itself and its performance as a reliable and trusted partner to patients and industry. I have a lot of concerns there based on how this process or non-process happened. And as somebody who has worked with several FDA administrators and has been a part, special governmental employee to FDA, and cares about the institution so deeply, I'm very disappointed and very concerned in how this has rolled out. And I really want FDA to avail themselves of the opportunity to speak to us. So, for those of you, we have, several more minutes, and I just want to sort of go around and maybe, each of you, starting with Tony, what is it most that you want FDA to understand about, the seriousness of NASH and, the importance of the patient voice?
From my perspective, what I really would like them to understand, again, repeating a little bit what I said, is just people continue to be at risk for this disease. And it's not, there aren't many happy outcomes. In my case, I did have a liver transplant, but even life after a transplant, I mean, the anti-rejection drugs, bring their own issues with them. So they just have to understand that this is serious. It isn't, as Terri said, it's not like, no big deal. It is a big deal.
Absolutely. Wayne, what would you most like FDA to know and to understand?
The biggest concern to me, if we set Intercept aside, is that Intercept was playing by the rules, and the way these trials work, they have an agreed upon endpoint that is negotiated by the FDA and by the companies as to what success means. And it's complex in the liver because it's hard to get a precise measure, and we're struggling to find the tool that's ideal to measure success. But we agreed upon one-stage reduction in fibrosis, and Intercept achieved that. So beyond Intercept, what that does is it throws a shockwave into every other drug design that's out there. And we've got about 100 more drugs that are in trials. And what this causes for them is to step back and say, wow, we don't even know what it is that FDA will accept at this point. And that's going to delay other trials. It's going to make investors flee because it's very, very expensive to do this work. And if you can't rely on the routine evolution of the procedures, and you're just going to end up in some weird, all of a sudden out of the blue, you get this odd decision. We can't have that in the field. I mean, it harms everybody that's engaged in the whole process of drug development. And I really worry about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Terri?
One of the things that kept on coming to mind was is that a couple months ago, as I posted my story, and a friend responded and said, "Oh my gosh, thank you for posting it." She had just taken both of her kids to their pediatricians, and they had been tested for fatty liver and came back at F2. So this problem is a generational thing. It's not just, as I'm looking at us, it's not just a grandparent thing. It's not an older adult thing. It is our next generation. It is our future, and we need to stop it now before it goes any further. So the people that are joining the group, I have several moms of 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds who already have NASH. That needs to stop, is before it gets to that point. And so finding the drug now, going ahead and moving forward now, means that those kids have an opportunity to not be where we are at right now.
Absolutely agree, Terri. My first diagnosis came when I was age 13 with inflammatory bowel disease, and I have been on every class of IBD drug that has been created, and I'm only being able to sit here today and to do this work and live this life because I've been one step behind the innovation, or rather there's always been innovation one step ahead of me and my disease, so that I've been able to, as disease, progressed or flared or advanced in some fashion, there was another drug with a different effect or a more powerful effect that came along. And I may even at this point have to go on, another class, because I'm having some breakthrough symptoms and non-response. And so that's the chance that I hope for every NASH patient to have, and certainly every, child and 13-year-old like I was, to be able to live a life, to live long enough for that next innovation to come and to give them the fullest life possible. And so I thank you all for standing with me together to push for that. I have no doubt that together we will make that happen. We will get our response from FDA and the actions that are necessary to move this entire field forward. And I am honored to have you with me on this episode of GLI Live today. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to everyone, watching or listening today or a little bit later, you can find this and other episodes and additional information that we'll put in the show notes on globalliver.org. We'll also have links to the other organizations from these fantastic speakers and advocates. And come back and watch us next week to see what we say. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram. In the meantime, please stay safe, stay well, and stay connected.